Stop it. All of you. You guys are so annoying.
Hey everybody, it's Mazer here for Twisted Media. If you don't know, Twisted Media is my new website where I am centralizing all my reviews, my blogs, my videos, and, well, now podcasts. That's right, I am going to start doing podcasts. I think this is more efficient than me making those videos called Mazer On, where I discuss different topics. And I got 3 little topics for us today that I'd like to start this first podcast with. And the very first thing we'd like to talk about is the shaming signs. For those of you who do not know, shaming signs has become really popular lately. Originated through people putting little signs on their pets. Like, they would put a sign on the dog, and the dog, it would say, "I pooped in the kitchen, I'm a bad dog." Or they would put a sign around their cat saying, "I clawed the furniture, I'm a bad kitty." Well, things kind of got a little more heated up when a father did one of his toddler, and it said, "I pooped in the shower and my dad had to clean it up. By signing this sign, I give him permission to use this for my high school yearbook photo." Some people figured it was a joke. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was pretty funny because I knew the origins, that these shaming signs came from people shaming their pets. But a lot of people took it a lot more seriously. They thought he was abusing the girl. But, so the shaming thing has become really big now, really popular. And what I'm seeing is a lot of mothers are doing this to their kids. The picture that made me want to talk about this was, I saw this on 9gag, and there was a little boy, he couldn't be older than 12 years old, standing on a corner with a sign around his neck, and the sign reads, "I am a bully, I bullied so-and-so, shame on me," something to that effect. And his mom is standing right there, and the kid looks miserable, as he should. And if you do a little research online, you can find that this is a growing trend. There's a woman in Florida, she did this to her 15-year-old boy when his GPA was a 1.2 something. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it was 1.22 GPA. And the sign read, "I did 4 questions on my FCAT and said I wasn't going to do it. My GPA is 1.22. Honk if I need an education." And I saw the picture. The boy looks miserable. And one of the bigger ones was a mother discovered that her 15-year-old daughter has been making fun and bullying another girl and about the way this girl dresses. So the mom had this girl go to a thrift store and buy supposedly ugly outfits. I saw the image. I saw the pictures. They're not that god awful. I think people are exaggerating on how ugly these dresses were. So the mom takes these photos and posts it on the girl's Facebook, and then she has the girl go to school dressed up like this. And I think it's, personally, I think it's a very good lesson for bullying. A lot of people say bullying comes from the home, and to an extent that's true. You have some bullies who are made because they have problems at home, and I understand that. But from my personal experience, you also have people who are just bullies because they're dicks. They're just plain mean dicks. They have a good home life, they have a good education, but just because you are not part of the circle or you do things differently, they target you. And it's a really kind of almost like a primal thing, the quote-unquote strong preying on the quote-unquote weak. But what about the shaming? Is this shaming bullying by the parents to the kids? Well, it really depends. I think the shaming for the grades, that might have been a little too far. But shaming, showing these bullies and showing these kids who are really nasty, like there's one where the kid cussed out his teacher. So the mom wrote him a sign, and he had to stand outside his school in a it looks like a tuxedo. It's the black and white suit. and the kid has to hold this sign in front of the school, and all the kids basically see that he cussed out the teacher. And sometimes, is that going too far? The kid's crying in the video, but and people say, well, he's so young. Well, you know what? If I ever said that to a teacher, if I cussed at a teacher at his age and at the school I went to, I would have been slapped, to be completely honest. And I know it might be sounding a little harsh, but this generation, this world we live in, I'm seeing such a rise of disrespect. I'm hearing kids with foul mouths saying things I would never have dreamed of saying. Don't get me wrong. There was a moment in my life when I was in like 5th grade where I cussed like a sailor. But you know what? I got smacked in the face for that. I had the soap in the mouth. I got paddled. And I stopped. In fact, my friends give me a hard time because I actually don't cuss. I say some words. You know, the things that you'll say in a PG-13 except the S word. So I say a few words here and there. But, you know, I don't say the F word. I don't say the S word. I don't say the B word. And is this going too far, shaming these kids? I do not think so. You know, they say kids should fight back against bullies, and I completely agree with that, but sometimes a punch in the face just doesn't really cut it with some kids. They need to be shown that it's not okay to prey on everyone else. And I remember there was this one time my school had those, you know, best dressed, worst dressed things, you know, who has the best lunch, who has the worst lunch. And what ended up happening was the kid voted for worst dressed. They found out that the reason it was his clothes were hand-me-downs from his brothers or something like that. And they couldn't really afford the new clothes. So it was like, oh, insensitive joke. It was fine all the previous times, but then there was a one moment. And, you know, that sucks. And that I feel bad for that. But that's an honest mistake. When you have the actual bullying, and today it's so much worse because the bullying doesn't stop when you get home. With Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr, you know, bullying is now in the home. And sometimes when you have a kid who's constantly harassed, even in the safety of their own home, when they go online, they see this. I think it's okay when a mom or a dad takes that initiative, drags their kid out, and shows them what humiliation feels like. Let me tell you a story. Speaking of this, I was shamed. When I was about 7 years old, my mom took me to Vaughn's, and we did our shopping, and I asked her for some candy, and she said no. So I grabbed a huge handful of candy, I shoved it into my pocket, and on the way home I was chowing down on this stuff, and when she got me out of the car, my lap was covered in candy wrappers. It wasn't very bright. I didn't decide to hide it. So my lap's covered in candy wrappers, and she could have whooped me. She could have belted me, and she did something different. She shamed me. She got my little wallet. I had this little Mario Nintendo wallet thing, and I probably had $1.80 in it. And to me, that was a lot of money, because you know, when I was 6, 7 years old, you know, $1.80 could get you some really cool stuff with the ice cream man. So for me, that was my life savings, man. So she makes me go she drives me back to Vaughn's, and she takes out she gets the manager of the store, and for me, the manager, she stood like 9 feet tall. I just felt like I was as small as a bloody Smurf. And my mom made me confess to stealing. Then she made me pay my whole $1.80 in retribution to the woman. Now, mind you, this is not as public as the shaming is these days. Putting your kid on the side of a road with a sign on their neck. But in effect, it did the same thing. It embarrassed me. I felt terrible. And I'll tell you something. I've literally never stolen anything ever since I was a little kid. Since that one time. I know parenting these days is a hot button topic. People are very sensitive we're in a huge political correctness generation. Personally, that sickens me. But, I grew up in an era where, swatting your kid on the butt was acceptable, and now you can't so much as look at your kid the wrong way without people calling you a terrible parent or abusive. And so when you have a kid who you are legitimately trying to raise to be good, and the kid goes off and is still a horrible person, what do? You can't whoop them anymore because they'll call the police on you. So I don't think humiliating your child in such a fashion is so negative. It will suck for a certain period of time in that kid's life, but will it traumatize them? Will they be 40 years old down the line, sniffing coke off a desk, screaming, I'm doing this because my mom made me wear a sign when I was 15. I blame everything on my mama because she made me wear a sign. No, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen at all. But there is a limit. I won't lie to you, there is a limit. Have I seen the limit? Not necessarily. Again, you might bring up that kid in Florida, very young kid. I'm sorry, if you have the nerve enough to cuss at your teacher, you can tolerate standing on a corner with a sign around your neck or wearing a suit. Sorry, I have no sympathy for you. I went to an all-boys school. God forbid if I even raised my voice at a teacher. God forbid. I would never think of cussing out one of my teachers at my school. Not to say that didn't happen. There were students who did that. And they got what was coming to them, but still I can't believe I can't believe kids could do that today. There's very little respect. I don't mean to generalize. There are very good kids in this world. But I don't know. I feel like there's a problem going around. Maybe it's because we're so connected with the internet. We're so connected with everything in this world that I don't know. They're a little desensitized. Maybe they see things in games. I'm not blaming games. I am not blaming games. God forbid if I blame anything on video games. I'm talking about the people on the video games and these live chats. You hear such foul language when you put the headphones on. And then, I don't know, we're so connected that kids are exposed to things a lot younger. But if they're willing to go that step, to be that bully, to cuss out that teacher, I don't think a little humiliation is overboard. I might even encourage it until I see it go too far. But for right now, I'm okay with that. And personally, I would love to hear your comments on this whole humiliating sign deal that's been going around. I'd love to hear, are you pro it? Do you think these parents are doing a good thing? Do you think the parents are becoming bullies? Or do you think that these kids who are acting out in such a horrible way deserve it? Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this debate.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Next up, I'd like to talk to you about the Miiverse Censorship. I don't know if you guys have the Wii U, but for those who do, you know that they have this very cool little integrated social network called the Miiverse. And in the Miiverse, you have a 100 character limit. It's kind of like a shorter version of Twitter. And you have a screenshot and a drawing option. So you could either type out a quick phrase, you could draw a picture, and the pictures people draw are literally amazing. I cannot believe they're able to do this with a stylus pen on a tablet like this. But I digress. I got into a discussion with a friend of mine, and there's another guy I know on the internet who's against this. And what happens is, in the Miiverse, if something is considered harassment, bullying, spam, advertisement, hateful or hurtful speech, sexual content, or explicit, that anybody in the Miiverse could flag it, and one of their moderators will delete the post and then give a warning to whoever posted it. I don't know what warnings do. I think you might be banned from the Miiverse, but you're not. It's not like EA's thing where you're banned from your games. You might be just put on suspension in the Miiverse, where you cannot really post for a certain length of time. But my friend and I, and when I have a chance, I'll get him in here to do a debate with me concerning this, but is it censorship, which is what he claims, or is it regulation, which is what I claim? Now, I am very anti-censorship. When I found out that they're going to remake those Mark Twain books without the N-word in them, that pissed me off. It's the sign of an era. And I do not agree, just because we're living in a modern society, I do not agree that you should alter a representation of the time for today. It's pure censorship, and it does not exist. It should not exist. Now, that does not mean that I can go in front of Washington, D.C., pull my pants down, and wipe the American flag between my legs while screaming, death to the president. You see, freedom of speech has responsibilities, and that's what a lot of people do not understand. So I do not believe in censoring people, but I do believe in regulations. I stay on forums a lot. There's at least 4 or 5 forums that I'm currently active in. And the moderation on 2 of the forums is very laxing. Now, when we had strict moderation, people could cuss, but there was a certain degree. You couldn't use the C word or the F word, that's a derogatory term for a gay man, because those would be instant banning. And when the moderation became slacked, that's all you hear now. That's all the words, and it's personally really irritating. And this goes not with just like forums, but everywhere on Facebook. Even people say disgusting, foul things. And for the Miiverse, personally, I'm very glad it has regulation against that, because I enjoy going on the Miiverse and not worrying about 50,000 penises drawn on everybody's tablets. I'd rather have a nice, easygoing talk with my 100 text limit with some people without worrying about people dropping the F-bomb, calling each other foul names, drawing penises, drawing vaginas, drawing sex, Rule 34 crap. For me, signing on to the Miiverse without ever once worrying about saying a naked Princess Peach pop up, I love it. I personally love it. And it's kind of forcing maturity on people. Does it go overboard? Yes, it can. Some posts that get flagged are generally not offensive. Someone could say, I don't know, this is stupid. Let's say I make a comment, he responds, this is stupid. Someone could find that offensive, flag it. It's up to the moderators. So again, there's always a responsibility from not only the community, but from moderators as well. And I understand that there could be ways around this. You can make, maybe let's say, an age limit. So the parents could go in, put an age limit on the Wii U, and let's say the kid's under 15. Then he's restricted to only certain areas of the Miiverse. If he's over 18 and over, he gets full access. He can draw penises until his heart's content. But you know what? That's just too much hassle. And besides, you got kids today. I was on YouTube today, and there was like a 14-year-old kid doing Photoshop tutorials. And I was listening to Leo Laporte on KFI, and this kid was like, I don't know, this kid was like 13 years old, setting up like fancy podcasts, and he knew all this technical jargon that made me feel like a freaking dinosaur. So if you have kids who are doing this, they can get around an age restriction on the bloody Wii U. And if there was a password system, I'm sure they'll find a way around it. So, should it be censored? I don't think it's censored. It's regulated. Now, there's an argument where, because it's so regulated, will Nintendo remove negative comments about their games? Can I go onto the Mario Miiverse and say, this Mario game is terrible. Bad controls, bad graphics. I hate this game. Now, will that post get taken down? That's the question. You see, if it was taken down without breaking any of the rules, now that is censorship. That is Nintendo saying, we don't want negative press on our game, we're going to remove your post. Regulation is not allowing people to draw penises. Censorship is when I dislike something, I state that I dislike something, Nintendo doesn't like my opinion and they remove it. That's the difference, at least to me. And I am very much against that. But I am not seeing that. I have seen many posts, especially for Sniper V2 and Injustice, where people are very adamant about how much they are upset with the removal of downloadable content or multiplayer. And I have seen a few comments on some of the Nintendo games where people are not particularly happy with how the game handles. I know some people said they don't like the Toads. They'd rather have a Wario or a Daisy or a Waluigi in Mario U. I've heard people complain about Collision being too easy, too difficult, and their complaints stayed up. It's not like Nintendo said, oh, no, we don't want any negative press, we'll take it down. I have yet to see that happen. So, is the Miiverse censored, or is it just strictly regulated? Again, I would love to hear your comments. Please comment below. Do a video response. I'd love to see those. And give me your thoughts about the Miiverse if you have a Wii U. Is the fact that you can flag comments and have them removed if they are offensive, advertisement, spam, etc., etc., do you find that censoring or do you find that strict regulation? I'd love to hear from you.
This is my book, and I'm gonna read it!
Well, I would like to end this podcast with a quick review for a book I recently finished and I was very happy with. I don't know if you people have... I know a lot of you might have seen the movie, but how many of you have actually read Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter? If you've read the book and seen the movie, you'll realize the movie is almost nothing like the book. The book actually details his entire life, whereas the movie is only usually a brief showing of his childhood, a brief showing of his his life as a teenager, and then him during the Civil War. Whereas the book goes through the entire thing. Excuse me about that. So, what am I going to talk about is not Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Instead, it is Unholy Night by Seth Graham Smith, the author who wrote Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and also wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Now, Abraham Lincoln was my very first Seth Graham novel that I read. And if you read it, it doesn't really read like a novel. It's more like a journal. So it's done a lot through Lincoln's point of view, and basically we don't get to see Seth's writing ability as a novel. We see it written as a journal with a bunch of factoids and pictures and everything. But as a actual novel, my first time reading his actual, like, literary style would be this Unholy Night. And what I really like about Seth Graham is the fact that he takes things from the past, whether it's a classic novel, a historical figure, or a biblical story, and he adds his own little twists to them. Like, why was Lincoln so adamant about the Civil War? To stop the vampires, of course. Because the slaves were being used as vampire food. Let's stop the vampires, free slaves, boom, 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah! So, what is the twist with Unholy Night? Oh, God, the twist is beautiful. Everybody, religious or not, has at least heard the story of the 3 wise men. You see, when Jesus was being born in the manger, the Star of Bethlehem guided 3 wise men to the barn. And the 3 wise men had gold, myrrh, and frankincense. And that's really all that they say about the 3 wise men. It's like, they showed up, they paid their respects, and they kind of just, you never hear from them again. So, what Graham did, what Seth did, was he made a story about the 3 wise men. And they're not religious, happy, praise be God men. They are actually 3 of the most dangerous thieves of the era. And that's the big twist. It's like the story follows Balthazar. Sorry, I had to pronounce his name. Balthazar. And he is the ghost of Antioch. Basically, he is like the most renowned thief in the area. And the story follows him as a thief up to his arrest, and then it follows him and 2 other criminals as they escape from the city and end up meeting with Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus. And then after that follows another few weeks of them traveling with Mary and Joseph. And right away, if you've read Abraham Lincoln or if you watch the movie, they're both very violent, which I love. But the violence in this book, and the only reason I bring it up is because in every review I read about this, people are like, it is so violent, it is so graphic. Yes, it is, but that was the era. It was swords penetrating throats and heads and decapitations and guttings and plagues. And like the movie Django, I think people focus too much on the violence and not on the story. The way they did the story where we follow Balthazar, I can't pronounce his name, Balthazar, when we see his life and how he did not originally start off as a killer and a thief, how he just wanted to do good for his family, all the way up to his meeting with Jesus. It's so well written. You just dive in. When I first started reading it, I got through the first 5 chapters within an hour. I mean, I could not put this book down. And one of the things I really appreciate was, while this was a twist on a biblical story, which many people might be tense about, because religion's such a touchy subject. Even today, religion's very touchy. He did it in a very respectful would be the word I have to use. A very respectful way. Because he humanizes all the characters. And I really appreciate that. You know, he did not make Mary and Joseph blind followers of God, or fanatics, or people who are just off in their own little world of religion. Mary and Joseph were very human, with very human doubts, especially Joseph. And I love that. And Balthazar, he had his own doubt. He was very condescending because his life was so hellish. And his interactions between him and Mary were just, it was cruel, but you understood why he felt this way. And Mary, being only 15, 16 years old at the time, you really sympathize her because she is struggling so hard to believe what she's been told about Jesus, while still being just a kid herself, and at the same time dealing with this condescending man who refuses to believe in her faith because of his own experiences in life. The way he humanizes all the characters, it was very engaging dialogue, very engaging. And you know, the way he wrote it, you could see every detail. You could see the deserts, and he does these great little paragraphs with animals. Like, one of the opening scenes of the book is just from an animal's point of view as it's grazing, how it looks up and sees a dust cloud and then realizes it's not a predator and goes back grazing as the person rushes past it. My only complaint, if I had to choose one, was that I have grown used to, when a book switches the points of view between characters, that it's a different chapter, or there might at least be spaces between the paragraphs. So let's say I'm reading a Star Wars novel. One chapter is dedicated to Skywalker, one chapter is dedicated to Han Solo, and if a chapter shares characters, you get a big space. He doesn't do this. In some portions, we'll be getting it from Balthazar's point of view, and then suddenly it switches to King Harold's, or Jasper, or Joseph. And if you pay attention, you notice it. But if you were speed reading or just going through it, you might have not picked it up. But where Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, in the book, it ends kind of abruptly. You don't really discover who or what happens to the guy who got Lincoln's journal. You don't discover what happens to him. This one had a solid, conclusive ending, strong beginning, strong end. And one thing I want to bring up is, this is something I noticed in a lot of reviews. People say that you should have some kind of knowledge of the Bible, or at least the story of the birth of Jesus. I don't think you do. Now, I might be biased because I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I know the story on the back of my hand. But the way he describes everything is, even if you do not know the characters like King Harold, you end up getting a good idea who they were because of the way he wrote it. So I might not know King Harold off the top of my head, but you get a good idea of what kind of man he was, what his personality was, through Seth's novel, through Seth's writing. So I don't believe you have to be a quote-unquote biblical major like so many reviewers have said you might have to be to enjoy it to the fullest extent. a little knowledge will help, because smaller characters, you'll be like, oh, I know him. I know what's going to happen later in Jesus' life because of the presence of this character. You might miss out on that. But it's such a minor thing that I don't feel like it'll bog the book down. So I'm seeing by my little recording that our time is up. Please, comments if you've read Unholy Night, if you have enjoyed Seth Graham's novels, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, let me know. Give me your review. Did you like Unholy Night? Do you not like it? Did you think it was too violent? Not violent enough? Let me know. Anything of the topics we've discussed, I would love to hear what you have to say. So I will see you next time, and I look forward to spending more time with you guys, talking many different topics, and reading your comments. Thank you very much, and I'll see you then.